Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. I always say this, but it's always true. We have a jam-packed event in store. The hour always bursts at the seams, and we always end up going probably a couple of minutes longer because we have so much content that we jam into these world's most exciting classroom events. So let's start off with a quick update of where the Oosterschelde is right now. I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me as it loads, and then we will get right into it. Okay, you should see it now. I'm going to go a little bit bigger. So this map's been pretty boring the last 3 or 4 weeks. The ship is now on the North Island of New Zealand. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see what that looks like. Why is it there? Well, it's doing 2 things. The last few weeks it's been undergoing maintenance. So the ship just sailed across this massive blue expanse of the Pacific Ocean. And during those several months, there was no spot to get really new supplies, to do repairs to the ship and things like that. So it's taken a few weeks here on the North Island to do some maintenance, get some supplies on board. Right now, there is a ton of activity on board the ship. We have the current crew of Darwin leaders, so young conservationists from around the world who are working on conservation projects on the North Island of New Zealand. And over the next few weeks, we'll get to meet some of them, learn about some of their projects, and of course, get a chance to ask them some questions. In a day or so from now, you will see the ship move from where it is here in Wangari to Auckland. So it's going to make its way to Auckland. There we'll pick up a new set of passengers and a couple researchers, and then we'll make our way across this expanse of ocean to Sydney. That's going to take us a couple of weeks. We'll have some live uplinks from the ship. And then once we're in Sydney, we are going to have a ton of live classroom events from the field in Sydney. So that's going to be a ton of fun. You guys will be sleeping when they're live in North America and Europe, but the recordings will be there the next day for you to tune into and check those out. Okay, that's what I want to update us on the map. Let's come back from that screen share and let's get right into our first guest. We actually have 3 kind of speakers joining us throughout the event today. So we're going to have to get right into it. First, we have Naia joining us. Naia was a Darwin leader in Peru. She joined us over the summer and we met her then, but most classes, of course, were out for the summer. So we're going to get a chance to meet her today, learn a bit about the project she was working on. And we've got her video to play, one of the videos she created while she was in the field in Peru. So let's bring Naia in with us right now. Hey, Naia, how are you?
Hey, Joe, it's great to see you.
Yeah, Naia, it's great to see you too. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And just to confirm, so you are a leader with us in Peru, and I believe you're in Ecuador. Is that where you're from?
Yes, I'm from Ecuador, and yeah, I was very happy to know that I was going to Peru with you guys. I spent there for a week, and we actually had a special trip because normally the Darwin leaders only go to the shores or close to the coast. But in Peru, I think they wanted to get a more diverse ecosystem range, and some people went to Machu Picchu, to the mountains. I went to the Amazon. So at the end, we had a lot of adventures to talk about.
Excellent. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the project you worked with, and then we might think about playing the video soon.
Yeah. So actually, the Amazon here in Ecuador is very similar to the one in Peru. I was amazed by how similar they were, and I was very happy to get to know the Amazon in other places in the world. And so, what I found different is these amazing flooded places. There are some here in Ecuador, but they're different and they're called different and they have different species. And they are just these huge lagoons and flooded places where is dominated by palms. And in these palms grows a very special orchid that I bet everyone has heard of. The name is vanilla. Vanilla is this orchid that grows in Central America, South America, and is now cultivated in several countries around the world. And actually, the essence of vanilla that we eat in our daily lives, it's not the actual orchid, it's an artificial essence. So my project was to get to know the real vanilla, the orchid that lives naturally here in Peru, and understand why it's threatened. Uh, the main reason is gold mining. It's an activity that occurs in the same place where vanilla grows. And a lot of people in Peru don't even know about vanilla. They don't even know how profitable the market of vanilla is. And it could be a potential solution or an economic alternative to gold mining. So that's a summary of what my project was. The experience to be there and to smell the actual fruit of the vanilla was amazing. And yeah, I will probably let the video talk for me.
All right. Well, that's a great idea. Let's play that video now, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about your experiences. So let's get that loaded on my end. It is ready to go, and we should see it right about now.
There is an essence that almost anyone can recognize. It adds a unique flavor to our daily lives.
Among these large trees, an overwhelming green, in the top of palms or around their tall trunks, grows an orchid, the vanilla flower.
Nos tardamos como 2 horas en encontrar el aroma, como buscando el aroma más fuerte y llegando al punto. De la hoja. Y la flor es igual en realidad. También es súper bonita, ¿no? Y fue el momento, como quien dice, marcado, ¿no? Que encontramos el fruto con la planta y ya, pues entonces tuvimos este gran momento para continuar estudiándola, ¿no?
My name is Naia Andrade. I am from Ecuador and I worked in the Amazon rainforest during my biology career. Now, with DARWIN200, we travel to the Peruvian Amazon to get to know the vanilla and its potential for conservation. We are in the Inca Terra fuel station and our guide Dax will show us his great passion about vanilla and why he considers it the green gold.
Muy popularmente conocimos como vainilla, la esencia de vainilla, ¿no? Bueno, en realidad es una orquídea que ha sido muy popular muchos años atrás en la parte norte o centro de Centroamérica, en la parte norte de Sudamérica. Los totonacas pues lo consumían o lo empezaban a utilizar dentro de sus ceremonias, ¿no? Ellos hacían un ritual para sus dioses y entonces mezclaban vainilla con cacao para sacar esta bebida de los dioses.
Vanilla, once used to honor the gods, was taken by French conquerors to Europe and Africa. Nowadays is cultivated in several countries, including Peru, with a price of around $100 per kilo.
Haber probado la vainilla natural, muchos de nosotros tal vez no, pero en algunos sitios sí se comercializan las vainas de la vainilla planifolia. Hasta acá en Perú lo consumimos porque llegan a restaurantes gourmet, pero los que no tienen la oportunidad de entrar a un restaurante gourmet, pues tenemos la esencia que es muy barata, ¿no?
Here in the region Madre de Dios, we find native species with similar economic potential. But there is a rampant threat that is destroying vanilla's natural habitat: gold mining. Until 2013, only 23% of the wetlands in which vanilla grows remained intact. The rest had some level of impact because of gold mining. Now, more than 10 years later, the impacts remain unknown and have potentially increased.
Okay. Naia, what a beautiful place you got to visit. I came out there as well, probably the week after, and I spent time in the same area of the Amazon, but I think a little further north in Manu National Park. And it is just such an incredible area of the world, but it's so scary to see how much is disappearing due to gold mining. Were you able to see any of that where you were? Did you see any of the sites?
Well, we actually saw the sites that were on the satellite images, but from the plane.
Okay.
It was so extensive. It was massive. And this is one of the most affected regions in Peru. I think the Madre de Dios region.
Yeah.
It's just destroyed. And it's crazy because it's in the headwaters of the basin. So in the second video, I explained that gold mining is, especially illegal gold mining, because there are no regulations. People use mercury to separate gold from other minerals. So this mercury is just spilled into rivers. And since it's in the headwaters of the basin, it goes to every town and every community. And it's very dangerous for human health as well.
Absolutely. I saw the same thing from the plane. I spent a week as well in part of the forest, no people, no electricity, no running water, filled with jaguars and harpy eagles and macaws. And then to end the journey, heading down the river into one of the settlement frontier towns was pretty sad to see that the amount of damage that's happening. And that vanilla that you talk about, the crop is worth a lot of money and could be an amazingly sustainable livelihood for many in the community instead.
Yeah, I really like this project because it's very difficult to convince people to stop doing gold mining because it's such good money and just right away. And some people just need that.
Yeah.
We can't just say that these people are evil. Some of them might be mafias and everything, but some people just have to make a living. And I really like this project because it proposes an economical, viable way to vanilla is very profitable. In Peru, you can sell 1 kilo for $100 to $200. In the world market, it is projected to have better prices in the future, and it is, since it's so difficult to process the vanilla and it's such a long process, that's why it gets such a good profitability. Yeah. And there are ways to make it non-sustainable. So it's also important to highlight that this crop should be able to go sustainable. It can be grown. It needs a support to grow. So you can grow it in a forest that still has some native trees, and you can make a combined crop. So there are easy ways to make this crop sustainable. So that's also important.
Absolutely. Okay, let's those who are tuning in via YouTube, if you have any questions, use the chat sidebar. We're going to have Naia with us for a few more minutes. We also have Mrs. Painter's 8th graders hanging out backstage. So Mrs. Painter's crew, if you have a question or two for Naia, if you want to turn on your camera, and that'll let me know to bring you in for a question. Oh, there we go. Let me get them in here right now. All right, we're ready for you.
Miles. Does vanilla taste better or worse when it's natural?
it tastes way better. It's amazing. You cannot even compare it. Vanilla, natural vanilla, and there are several species, and each species has like different scents. So it's a whole experience. And what I say in the third video is that it should also be a touristic experience. Like, who wouldn't want to go to the jungle and have an experience to get to know the place where vanilla grows and smell all of the possible scents that it has?
All right, very cool. Quick question here from online, and this question is about the project you were working on and the mining. Did you get a feel from the group that you were working with that there's some progress being made in introducing the community to vanilla and how it can be used?
No, I was working with this fuel station and hotel. They're like a chain of hotels. They have hotels in Machu Picchu, in the jungle, and they are very fancy hotels and very beautiful. But they have no idea of the potential of vanilla. I wanted to buy. I was like, I'm gonna buy something in the airport. A vanilla essence or anything that I can buy to take home. And no one sells anything made from vanilla. And in Incaterra, they're doing great work, but only focused on taxonomy. They're studying the different species of vanilla, but they don't still have, and I don't know if they were interested. They mentioned sometimes, but they weren't really interested in applying something in the touristic sense. And my third video, I proposed this because in the hotel, we went there and we interviewed people from around the world, and they didn't even know that vanilla was from Peru, that there are species in Peru. So in the third video, the idea is to propose that this is a very, it has a lot of potential to make a touristic experience and to help Peru and also Ecuador. I live here in Ecuador, and it's a very similar case. We also have native species of vanilla. We also have gold mining. It's not as bad as in Peru, but that experience also made me see, okay, this is how bad it can get, and I don't want that to happen. So nowadays, I'm trying to figure out what else can be done here in Ecuador, where I know the reality better. Yeah.
All right. And I think a really good model from my experience is I've visited Mexico a few times, and you really can't go anywhere in Mexico without encountering vanilla for sale, vanilla at the airports. So I think, like you said, places in Ecuador, places in Peru could really benefit from having that opportunity to sell vanilla and make a good profit for the communities.
Yeah.
Naia, it was so good to have you with us today. Thank you so much for being with us. I know you had a great experience in Peru. I know we loved having you out and there with us. So thank you so much for what, thank you so much for what you do. And hopefully we'll get to connect again and maybe share another one of your videos from the series.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe. And thank you everyone for the questions. I hope you have a great class.
All right, Naia, thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Okay, so where we're going to go now, we are going to take a little virtual field trip to New Zealand. So last night I had a world's most exciting classroom event for classrooms in Australia and New Zealand. And I invited a very special speaker. His name's Dan Tompkins. He is the science director with Predator Free 2050 in New Zealand. And so their goal in New Zealand is to eliminate predators, mammals, because mammals don't actually really belong in New Zealand. Surprisingly, years ago, there was only 2 species of native mammals, and they were bats. All those other niches were filled by birds and insects and species like that. But us being humans, we usually take hitchhikers with us when we kind of colonize new places. And there's over 30 species of invasive mammals in New Zealand now. And they are wreaking havoc, especially on the birds. So that's their goal in 2050, to eliminate all of those mammalian predators that don't belong on the islands of New Zealand. So let's play this video and let's hear what Dan has to say about this incredible project. have Dan Tompkins joining us. He is a science director with Predator Free 2050 in New Zealand, and they have a pretty ambitious goal of wiping out invasive stoats, rats, and possums in the country by 2050. So I'm going to grab Dan from backstage and bring him in with me right now. Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Hey, Joe. Good to see you. Yeah, doing well, thanks.
Yeah, good. Great to have you with us, Dan. What part of New Zealand are you in?
So I'm down in Dunedin, which is down towards the bottom of the South Island. So we're still a bit cold, still a bit wintry, wearing the pulley at the moment still. Looking forward to summertime.
All right, there you go. Well, we're really kind of stretching today's event. I'm in Canada. You're in New Zealand. Things are getting colder here, whereas I imagine they're getting warmer for you there. So we're flipping seasons.
Yeah, no, it's always good this time of year for us, but not so good for you guys.
No. All right, Dan. Well, we want to get into this. We want to learn a little bit about what you get up to. So let's let you take over for a little bit. Then we'll take some questions.
Sure. All good. Kia ora koutou. Hi to everyone listening in. As I said, my name's Dan Tompkins. I work for a company called Predator Free 2050 Limited. And we're trying to progress a national conservation mission here in New Zealand, where we're aiming to try and eradicate some invasive mammals from the entire country for the benefit of native biodiversity. And so what I'll do just now for about 15 minutes is show you a few slides, show a couple of videos, give you the reason why we're doing it and how we're getting on. And then happy to take any questions and comments afterwards. So why are we doing this? And so why does New Zealand have such a large invasive species problem? So this is a picture of this part of the world from about 100 million years ago. And in the green there, that's land, and the blue is the water. The gray bit below is the Antarctica plate, so don't worry about that for now. And I'll just show you a little video, and what you'll see is the process by which New Zealand separated from Australia over time and what happened in between. So I'll just click go now. So this is the sea coming in and New Zealand separating off. And then around about 30 million years ago, most of New Zealand was actually underwater. And so it's only been since then that we re-emerged to be the country that you know today and the country that the boat is currently moored up at. And so what this drowning period did is it means that a lot of the terrestrial fauna and flora was heavily impacted, such that even today, we only have 2 species of native terrestrial land mammal in the whole country. So because of this drowning, things like birds and insects could recolonize from Australia, but the mammals that have to walk everywhere, they couldn't make it. And so all we have left in New Zealand then is a great native assemblage of flora and fauna. We've got about 80,000 endemic species. We've got birds like the kakapo, reptiles like tuatara. We've got native insects like weta, and some of our trees are pretty fantastic. This is a pohutakawa, and these will be flowering up around the Auckland region pretty soon. But what happened as mankind has discovered New Zealand? Before people came here, pre-human settlement, maybe about over 1,000 years ago, there was only 2 species of terrestrial mammals in the entire country. They were both bats, because of course bats could have been blown over from Australia. We had a 3rd bat species that's now extinct. Every other mammal that you see on the land in New Zealand these days has been brought here by people, either intentionally or accidentally. And so from the 10th century onwards, with the initial Polynesian settlement of New Zealand, 2 species were brought then with people. We brought the Polynesian rat, or the kioi, as we call it in New Zealand, and the kui, or the Maori dog. And these 2 came with the original settlers of New Zealand from Polynesia. And then as Europeans discovered New Zealand, a whole load more species came in the 18th century with Captain Cook and whaling fleets, brought in more rodents and goats and pigs. And then with European settlement from the 19th century onwards, a whole new other range of species, so mustelids, rabbits, deer, and not being content simply bringing species from Europe, the settlers also stopped on way in Australia to pick up things like possums and wallabies, and they brought them down as well. So 35 invasive mammals in the country, and we have a flora and fauna that's evolved for about 20 million years now in the absence of these mammals. And you can imagine what the impact is. They're just not ready for it. And so this is a government report that was done back in 2017, where it really highlights the issue is ongoing today, that 80% of the remaining native bird species in New Zealand, they're still under a great amount of threat from these introduced species, mainly the introduced predatory mammals. And these are the targets of the Predator-Free 2050 mission. And this is why we're doing it, is that we need to actually remove these mammals that shouldn't be here to allow New Zealand's native species to flourish. And I'll just start off with one or two videos quickly, just to give you a feel for that and how we're going about trying to do it.
The West Coast really is an untamed natural wilderness. Their Waihi number is a World Heritage Site known for its extraordinary landscapes. And now we're embarking on a hugely ambitious project that has the potential to transform not just South Westland, but all of Aotearoa.
It's an awesome opportunity for jobs and for nature. The best thing is, we've already proven we can do it.
Zero Invasive Predators has recently removed possums, rats and stoats from 12,000 hectares in the Perth River Valley.
Yeah, for a start, I was sceptical, as a lot of people in South Western were. As the program's gone on, as we're seeing the results, we're all pretty happy now that it's making a big difference. The technology, the monitoring, the cameras, the traps, systems seem to be working really well, yeah.
If we can do it here, we must be able to do it anywhere. So what happens next is we're going to scale up what we've already done here. We're going to be doing it in this kind of landscape, rural areas, and also in local townships. And we'll be doing it with the community.
To be pest-free without the risk of TB for our farmers is massive. And it will increase the bird life that we enjoy seeing out here for anyone who comes to visit this special place.
We run a wilderness tour business out on Lake Maparika here. People often do comment that the bird life is really silent out here, which is difficult.
I've been trapping around the lagoon here now for 7 years. Each year I notice there's less of some species. What we're trying to do is protect the fernbird and bittern. Also kotuku, the roe, New Zealand's rarest kiwi, which lives in the hills around here, and other wading birds. Oh, nobody home, that's good. But what's changed is that we can actually eliminate predators from these sort of large, extensive areas of wildland. I can see maybe in a year or two, I won't need to trap around here.
Predator-free South Westland will work over 100,000 hectares from the Whataroa River and Perth River Valley to the Waio River at Franz Joseph. Natural barriers like rivers and mountains will keep most predators from reinvading. Those that do break through will be caught using a network of smart traps and detection devices.
So this is the latest technology we're using in the field. It's an AI camera that tells us exactly when and where we have predators. Hopefully with the technology and the gear they've got now, then they don't need to keep 1080. I think the community will be happy about that. You know, at least 1080 better. Hunters were worried that the animal numbers would get knocked down really low, but we've found so far that the tahr numbers are okay still, the chamois numbers are okay.
I think Predator-Free South Westland is going to, in the short term, bring a lot of jobs and opportunity to the area, try and retain people to this place. And then long term, it's going to create this magical experience of what New Zealand's really like in terms of the birds and the nature and everything that is around.
It's about nature, it's about jobs, it's about our community, and it's a massive investment in the future of South Westland.
I've watched kaka disappear, kakariki getting very rare now. We'd love to be able to see those birds be reintroduced and recover here.
I've been here all my life, flying here over 40 years. It's a beautiful bit of country, and it's nice to see that it will be protected by Darwin.
So this is one of 18 large landscape projects that we currently support around New Zealand. I won't go through the details of all of them, but the goal really is to crack the recipe, the puzzle for getting this elimination job done in the range of different landscapes that make up the whole of Aotearoa New Zealand, including out on the Chatham Islands off to the east. And so once we've got all the methods in place and the technologies ready, we'll be looking to roll out even faster progress across the entire country from 2030 onwards. And so our job is to support these landscape projects, and we also work on getting the tools and technologies in place that they need. So you saw Nate talking about advances with AI surveillance devices, and we're looking at cameras and olfactory surveillance and audio surveillance as well. And we're doing work on basic control devices, taking a thing like a basic kill trap, something called the DARWIN200, and turning it into a self-resetting, auto-baiting, self-reporting device that can be left out in the field for months at a time. We're doing remote comms with bait stations, and we're working on better luring as well. So this stoat at the bottom is going for a solid ceramic lure that lasts for up to 6 months in the field. And once you attach these to some of these devices or surveillance devices, you have an effective control and surveillance going on for long periods of time in the bush. We're also looking at some underpinning sciences, more technology, autonomous robotics, better use of thermal cameras, even genetics, to see are there better tools that we could be using in 10 to 15 years' time. And so how this is going, well, 8 years in already, and we're all actually already seeing impact on the ground. We're getting the job done. And in places like Southwestland, which is where that video was just shown from, we're getting things like this happening. So these are our mountain parrots here. This is a flock of juveniles. You would have been lucky to see 1 or 2 even 10 years ago. And so the response, the feeling, being able to see the impact we're having straight away is really quite cool. In addition to the birds, we're seeing plant life flourishing on the forest floor that would have been eaten by rats and other pests beforehand. We're also seeing behavioral changes. So there's a parakeet there, second from the left. And what we're seeing now with these birds is that rather than always being in the canopy, they're actually coming down to the forest floor to forage, which is something they would have never done in the past due to the threat of rat predation. We have kiwi populations are booming, and on the right there is the mountain parrot, the kea, that I just showed you, the juvenile flock. So already we're seeing a great resurgence of biodiversity where we're doing this work. And it's not just in the backcountry, it's in the cities of New Zealand as well. So one of our projects is Predator-Free Wellington, for example. And this has been operating since around 2018, 2019. And again, we're seeing bird life flourishing, we're seeing the reptiles coming back, and the insect life is doing well. So we have hope that we will continue doing this work. We will keep putting the pieces of the puzzle in place for getting it done up to 2030, and then rolling out across the whole of the country from 2030 onwards to try and spread these benefits more widely. And I'll just leave you with a final video from Wellington, just to give you a taste of what the Predator-Free Wellington project looks like. I knew I'd forget something. Doing this work in Wellington, what it's also allowed us to do is actually to reintroduce our native bird, the kiwi, back to our capital. And so after decades of not having kiwi in Wellington, we now have kiwi living in the surrounds of Wellington City, our capital, which is and they're breeding well in the predator-free space, which is a really nice accomplishment to already just 8 years into the mission. Okay, and here's the video.
When I was a bit younger, Wellington would be free of rats, possums and stoats. I told them they were dreaming. We know the impact those critters have on our manu mates, So, as a self-confessed bird nerd, damn exciting to announce that we've received predator-free 2050 funding to help bring the kiwi back to Wellington and become the world's first predator-free capital. And it's not just Zealandia, it's not just reserves, it's here! Here. And here. And here. Well, maybe not there. So you're probably thinking, there's a lot of hard work to do. How's it all going to happen? Well, it already is. Check out what's happening with Kate, Jamie, and the gang at Predator-Free Karori. So what's motivated the community?
Oh, we love it here in Karori. It's a cause that everyone can be a part of, young and old. Neighbours are meeting neighbours. We've been able to meet so many people in our suburb. It's awesome.
We've got Peru everywhere. We've got Hiwakaka in numbers we've never seen before. We border onto Zealandia, so we're getting lots of amazing native species coming back into our suburb. We're pretty excited about bringing kiwi back to Wellington.
And it's happening all over the city. The students are doing it. Even the kids are doing it. And it's not all hard work. Become part of city life. Go for a run or a ride in the town belt, check a few traps, dodge a car, go for a drink. So let's look at how this plan's going to unfold. The scale of Wellington becoming predator-free is awesome. It runs from Miramar to Makara Beach, Karori to Churton Park, and over to the south coast. With its natural cut-off point, Miramar Peninsula, Strathmore and Seatoon area will be the first region to really target full-scale predator eradication. We're here with Dan Henry, head honcho of Predator-Free Miramar. So Dan, tell us about how you got started.
We started a year ago. We had just 20 traps in a few backyards. Then we had a launch at the local community hall, and it's just grown from there. And we've now got 600 traps out across the whole suburb. We've got everyone from CEOs right down to newly arrived refugee families. We've got business leaders on board who've donated materials to build traps. Fix and Fog have thrown us a whole lot of peanut butter to bait those traps. We've caught upwards of 1,300 rats in a year, which is just awesome. And we've had people reporting an increase of birds in their backyard. But the neat thing is the way the communities come together around this common goal. And that's the exciting thing, is the way it's taken on a life of its own.
Backyard trapping is the first thing, helping to get the numbers down. And alongside that, there'll be a bunch of monitoring, from sewers to compost to trucks and transport. That means when we start the intensive operation, we get the numbers to zero quickly and keep them there. This Predator-Free 2050 funding allows us to take the next big step, and we can all be part of making Wellington the world's first predator-free capital and bring the kiwi back home.
So that's just a taste of what we're doing, and this video is a few years old now, so we've managed to do it. We've managed to get kiwi back into Wellington, and we're going to grow from there.
All right, so a huge shout out to Dan in New Zealand. He's in Dunedin, so in the southern part of New Zealand, and it really is quite an amazing project. Predator-Free 2050. They're making great progress. Still a long way to go, but they're proving it's possible to remove those predators that don't belong. And then it's a real story of hope, because it shows if you give nature some space, it's really resilient and it will bounce back. And that's what they've been seeing very quickly. They're seeing native wildlife bouncing back once those predators that don't belong there are completely removed. So we're going to play a little Kahoot quiz now. While Dan presented last night, I pulled together a little Kahoot quiz, and we're going to play that today. I'm just going to share my screen, and then it'll have all the information you need to join our Kahoot quiz. There we go. So you need to go to kahoot.it, and then today's PIN number for the Kahoot is 752795. So once you get there, it's going to ask you for the PIN number, and that will bring you right into play. We have a £50 Amazon gift voucher for the winning classroom today. If you are in a classroom and you have one-to-one technology, you could load this up at your desk with a tablet or a Chromebook or something like that. If not, your teacher could pop it up at the front of the room. You could shout out your answers to him or her and play that way. If you're at home, we have lots of homeschool students. You could use the QR code and scan it with your phone or your tablet. Lots of ways you can join. If you can't get in with technology, play along anyways and see how you do. So I'm going to give it another minute or two to see if we get a few groups in here with us, and then we will play some Kahoot together. Just to give you a little heads up for the rest of the event after the Kahoot, we have our experiment of the week to look at. So the experiment from 2 weeks ago, and a brand new one for classrooms to try. We have a little special visit from our cave divers in Indonesia who we've been following the last couple weeks. And then we'll wrap up the event with a curiosity of the week for classrooms to take a chance at solving and figuring out what it is. So that's our plan for the rest of the event. Lots to do in the next 20 minutes or so. So let's get this Kahoot going so that we can meet our cave diving team and see what they've been up to in Indonesia since last week. Okay, multiple choice, true and false. You have roughly 20 seconds to get your answer in for each question, but the quicker you put the right answer in, the more points you're going to get. So here we go. Warm-up question. Where was Dan connecting from today? Was he in Australia? Was he in New Zealand? Was he in Fiji? Or was he in Chile? So 4 options there. Was Dan in Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, or Chile? Lots of time to get that answer in. And then we'll see how our leaderboard looks to start. All right, good job, crew. A nice, easy one. He definitely was in New Zealand. A few went with Australia, and I think you're thinking about where we're heading next. The ship will be in Australia in a few weeks. Okay, Fuzzy Snail is in first place. Let's go for a true and false question. 30 million years ago, New Zealand was mostly underwater. Is that true or is that false? 30 million years ago, New Zealand was mostly underwater. All right, that is absolutely true. Dan referred to it as I think the Great Drowning, and that's because essentially all or most of the life on the land didn't survive when New Zealand resurfaced millions of years later. Birds and insects and things like that were able to make their way back to the island, but the mammals were not. All right. That puts the red falcon in first place. We're going to go to our next question. How many native terrestrial mammals can be found in New Zealand? Did Dan say there's 2, 4, 6, or 8 native terrestrial or land mammals that can be found in New Zealand? So remember, we're looking for the ones that belong there, not the number of invasive ones. Got a couple more seconds. All right, so it is 2. There are 2 native land mammals. They are bats. There was a third one Dan mentioned, but they went extinct quite a while ago. All right, one more question. Genius panda is in that top spot, and we have a true and false. 50% of bird species are under threat from invasive mammals. Is that true or false that 50% of invasive bird species are under threat from invasive mammals? Five more seconds to lock something in. All right, that is false. It's actually 80% of bird species in New Zealand are under threat from invasive mammals. So New Zealand's a really unique spot where all these empty habitats were filled by birds. Birds adapted to fill all of these different habitats that might have normally been filled by mammals on places like mainland Australia. So when the mammals came to the island, it just devastated the population. They had no defense against the mammals eating their eggs and their young and things like that. So 80% of bird species are under threat. So in third place, we've got the bold crab. In second, the genius panda. And holding down that top spot, excuse me, the royal pigeon. All right. If you are the classroom that contains the royal pigeon, I need you to send me a message today at classroom@darwin200.com. So royal pigeon, your classroom, send me a message, classroom@darwin200.com, and we'll make sure we get that gift card sent to your classroom. Okay, a couple weeks ago, we had an experiment, build your own volcano. So we're going to take a look at the results of that experiment right now.
Welcome back, everyone. How did you get on erupting your very own volcanoes? Well, it's about time my volcano erupted. If you remember, we set up this experiment with baking powder or sodium bicarbonate in the magma chamber of the volcano. In a real volcano, this would be deep underground, where the red-hot liquid rock accumulates before it vents and erupts. In this experiment, I've got vinegar to mix in with the baking powder inside the volcano to simulate the eruption. The problem is, it's very hard to know exactly how much a volcano is going to erupt, so definitely have some paper towels, just in case. Well, it's time for my volcano to erupt. 1, 2, 3. Wow! Look at that magma. Let's pour in a bit more vinegar. That's another eruption as well. My goodness. So just like a real volcano, the magma has erupted out of the vent, the top of the volcano, and come down the sides as streams of lava. Look, my lava has pooled all the way down at the bottom. In real volcanoes, the lava is really sticky. Don't forget, it is liquid rock, so it's very, very heavy. As the lava emerges and runs down the sides of the volcano, the lava cools down and solidifies. As it gets cooler, it gets more and more viscous, so it moves and runs more slowly. After each eruption, each layer of lava builds up in sequence, eventually forming this steep cone. This is known as a stratovolcano, and if you could cut it in half, you'd see all of those layers on top of one another. So this answers how a volcano is formed. The cone isn't pushed up out of the ground, but rather it builds up through a succession of eruptions. The more viscous the lava, the more pronounced the cone shape will be. The more runny the lava, the less pronounced and flatter the cone will be. I really hope you enjoyed erupting your very own volcano. And now let's find out who won this week's prize.
All right, so we had several classrooms who did send in the results. I'll be emailing them after today's event to let them know how they did. We have a brand new experiment. This one is taking a look at the size of our solar system. So let's play that experiment and then we'll let you know how you can take part with your classrooms.
Welcome back, everyone. In today's experiment, we're going to explore the immense distances of the solar system and just how enormous our universe is. In movies and books, you often see all the planets of the solar system close together, almost bouncing into one another. But in reality, it's not like that. In today's experiment, you can find out just how far the planets are from one another and from the sun. To start this experiment, you need to inflate a balloon to about 20 centimeters in diameter. That will represent the sun. Next, you need a little object to represent each of the planets in the solar system. Mercury, the first planet from the sun, would be roughly the size of this little pinhead relative to the scale of this balloon representing the sun. Venus and Earth would both be about the size of a peppercorn or a small pea. I've got these two here to represent these two planets. So there's Venus and then Earth. Mars, the next planet from the sun, would be roughly the size of this little pinhead. And because Mars is the red planet, I've chosen a red pin. Jupiter, the gas giant of the solar system, would be about the size of a large walnut. As you can see, it's much bigger than all of the other planets. Saturn, the next planet, would be about the size of a hazelnut. Uranus and Neptune would both be about the size of a peanut, or these peanut-sized pebbles that I've chosen here to represent these planets in my model. Then, last but not least, Pluto. Nowadays, Pluto isn't regarded as a true planet, but rather a dwarf planet. But I'm going to include it anyway. At this scale, Pluto would actually be the size of a 2mm grain of sand, but that's so tiny you probably wouldn't even be able to see it on the camera. So I've picked this small little piece of plasticine that's probably 4 millimeters across. Nevertheless, you can see Pluto is much smaller than all of the other planets. Now take your solar system out to your school's playground or football field or into a local park. Place the Sun at one end, then position each of the planets at the distances you think they would be relative to the Sun. Start with Mercury and then work your way out through the entire solar system. How far do you think each planet would be from the Sun at this scale? When you position your planets, put down a marker flag or an object that you can clearly see from a distance. Use a measuring tape to measure out the distances of each planet from the Sun and write down those distances so you can review them later. Consider really carefully the distance that you think each planet will be relative to the Sun. Join me in 2 weeks' time to find out the real distances between the planets at this scale. Good luck in your solar system experiment. Thank you for taking part, and see you next time.
All right, so 2 weeks to give that challenge a try. So shouldn't be too difficult to get your hands on some of those materials. Get out into your schoolyard and take your best guesses at what you think the distances would be. Send us in some pictures of your classrooms giving it a try. And again, our top 3 classrooms who send us in some results, we'll choose them for a £50 Amazon gift voucher. So before we wrap up with our curiosity, we have a little video update from Ranva and Maria in the field in Indonesia, where they're on a cave diving expedition. Caught up with them last night just before they went back out for another 3 to 4 hour dive in this cave system. So let's see what they were up to and what they had to share with us. I see our next guest hanging out with us backstage. I can't wait to catch up with them. When we last left Ranva and Maria, they were getting ready. They were all geared up and they're about to get into the caves on a dive. I think they said it would be about a 2-hour dive that day. So really excited to bring them in. Let's get them in live from Indonesia. Ranva, Maria, how are we doing today?
Good.
Good.
Hi,
to see
Joe.
you.
Nice to see you.
So great to see you both. It's nighttime for me. You're 12 hours ahead, so it's the morning for you. I just want to get right into it. How have the last few days been? How's the last week been going?
Oh, it's been going really well. It's been really busy. Our team has been working all day, every day. Like after dinner, the team goes straight back out, sits on their laptops. So since we saw you last week, our dry caving team have discovered no more than 3 new cave systems all around the Laulawi cave system area as well. And so that's on top almost, but underground in the dry section. And the divers in the meantime had now been diving everything underground to see what we can find. And the map is now slowly starting to take shape. And we can see that the map and where the new cave systems are found, they're slowly moving towards each other. We've not connected them yet, but so far we have underground for the divers, we have mapped about 4.2 kilometers of new cave. So that's really exciting.
Amazing. I have an image here of that map. Is it okay if I share it now?
Absolutely.
All right. Give me a second to load it up on my screen. There we go. Should be able to see it now. So the yellow pin, that must be where you guys were last week at the dry cave section?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. This is the start of the cave where we are entering the water from. And when Ranva is saying that everybody are going back out to work after we've had dinner here in the evenings and sitting on their laptops, this is what they're doing. So as the dry cavers are moving around in the dry parts of the caves, us divers, we're moving underwater, and we have some videos of that coming up where we're exploring new passages and laying line. And what you see, the red line here, is actually the line that is running underwater, put on top of Google Maps, so we can see the direction of the cave. And as the moment, the theory is actually being proven that the water is running from north to south, but we're also seeing that it is fracturing out into east and west. So we're spending the next couple of days looking in the area on both sides of this main tunnel running.
Okay, that is so cool. And I can see, I can already guess, looking towards the left, that it's probably going to connect somewhere, and maybe further towards the top portion. It's really exciting exploration because nobody has ever been in these places. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that's really catches the true essence of exploration, being the first ever to go around the corner and see what's there. It's pretty amazing, I have to say.
The first video you have, Joe, is actually showing just that. That shows us diving into a tunnel that has never been dived before. And if you start, we'll talk it over as you see how it looks. So this is actually one of our team members, Natalie. She's on the push team. So this means her job is to dive into the tunnels that hasn't been visited yet. And you see she's pulling a string in her left hand. She has to use this line because basically it's your lifeline. As it's first time she's diving into this tunnel, you see a lot of percolation, a lot of silt coming in the water, and that just means nobody has been here before and it's a tight place. We do go in tunnels that are huge as well, but this one is particularly tight, and without this guideline, it's going to be really hard to find your way out of the tunnel again.
But that's actually even true for the big tunnels, because some of the big tunnels here in Laulawi are so huge that it's actually quite easy to get lost in there. So these lines are, like Maria said, are lifelines.
And it's always fun to be number one like Natalie, because she can see what's ahead of her, but I'm filming behind her, and you see now it's starting to get really milky. And I tell you, after going through this passage, it was like diving in a glass of milk. And I have my hands on this line all the time. But coming back to this place a few days later, this silt will have settled and we can keep pushing this particularly line.
All right, very cool. At this stage, I want to remind those joining us that if you want to start putting questions into the chat, the private chat, or in the comments section via YouTube, please start doing so now. We'll start mixing some questions in for Ranva and Maria as well. Okay, well, let's keep going. I want to get back into that cave system.
Yeah, the next video is from the mapping team. So once this line has been laid by the push team, the mapping team then comes in and start drawing down the map. And this is very, very important for several reasons. We want to see the map that you had before with the red line on Google Earth. We want to see the size of the cave system. And one of the reasons why we do that is if we understand where it's running, we can also understand where the water is added from. So we're out here to start a geopark for the area, because the scientists believe that it is unique both for the geology. Sorry, this is us talking underwater. We can actually kind of understand each other.
On American time.
This is Natalie. Sorry, I didn't know that there was so much sound in there. So anyway, so mapping out this, we can actually see the area that the aquifer is being replenished in. So we can't just protect where the actual cave is, but also where the water basin is starting from. So as a mapper, you will have to be on the line, taking directions of compass and depths and distance. And that is what Natalie is doing in this video.
And also a quick note to the talking in the video. Although we're underwater, the equipment that we're using here are rebreathers. And because rebreathers have no bubbles, you can actually, it's really silent and quiet, and you can actually talk to each other, but you have a mouthpiece in your arse, so you have to talk like this to each other. It can be a little bit difficult to understand, but if you know each other well enough, then you know what the other one is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, some good questions coming through.
Yeah, I'm going to pop in with a few of them.
Yeah.
Asha and Hayden both are curious about the lowest point or the deepest part of the system that you found so far.
So far, the deepest point in meters is 21 meters. This is actually a fairly shallow cave, one of the more shallow caves that we have dived. First, like the first passage is down to about 6 meters, and you dive about 80 meters or so, and then you come to this beautiful underground river that goes for almost a kilometer. And here you're actually at 0 meters to about 6. And then you're diving through lots of different, like, big rooms, tiny rooms, little restrictions, and then another big room. And then it starts dipping down again. And then the average depth is between 6 to 12 meters, with some of the side tunnels going a bit deeper to about 18, 19 meters.
All right.
And that is actually talking into a lot of the questions as well. It's talking about the science, and what Ranva is talking about here with the deeper passages. This is one of the tasks for the science team. So we need to go in and retract data from the different parts of the cave. So both the freshwater, the salt water, and the deeper part and the furthest part. And so far we have done 4 stations of different data samples. Yeah, exactly. I think you actually have a video from that, Joe, and that can explain a little bit more.
All right. It's loading up right now, and it should start.
Ranva and I have prepared our scooters to go and collect today's data samples. We will be heading into station 1, 2, 3, 4, which is already positioned in the cave. We will be collecting fossils of shells and corals, and then we will install station number 5, where we will be doing water samples for DNA, and then we'll also be doing sediment samples, and we'll be collecting fossils there as well. We have been we've been giving these falcon tubes, so now we need to start sampling actual live specimens in the cave. For the dry cave team, they'll be heading down into Laui Laui and continue the exploration of the different areas. The cave is also heading south, we've learned, so besides having an upstream part of the cave, we now also have a downstream part of the cave. Now I will shut up and get ready.
So, actually, even since Maria has recorded this video, which was like, what, 4 or 5 days ago, we've already been yesterday to explore the downstream section, but unfortunately, as of now, that's not yet leading anywhere. So it's really exciting being out here. There's amazing and exciting developments every day, plus a whole bunch of challenges too.
All right. So Maria and Ranva, we will join them one more time from the field next week. We'll get one more update from their expedition in Indonesia, exploring that huge cave system. So to wrap up for today, we have our curiosity of the week. So last week's curiosity, let's find out what the answer was.
Back, everyone. For last week's curiosity, I asked you to try and guess the identity of this beautiful iridescent blue butterfly. Well, many of you sent in answers, and quite a few of you got it absolutely correct. You might be able to see from its name down here at the bottom of the specimen case. This is a morpho butterfly from South America. It's one of the most beautiful butterflies of the world, and one of the best examples of the iridescence in the insect kingdom. For the second part of my question, I asked you how and why this beautiful butterfly has this iridescent blue shine to its wings. Well, all moths and butterflies have wings covered in tiny microscopic scales. In the case of this morpho butterfly, the scales reflect blue light, causing this amazing iridescent blue shine. As to why they have this iridescent shine, it's thought that the bright blue sparkling effect of the wings startles and dazzles predators and puts them off from attacking these beautiful butterflies. Did you guess the answers correctly? Now let's find out who won this week's prizes.
All right, we had lots of great guesses coming in, several good ones, several different species, but we did have at least 3 groups who came through with the correct answer, and I'll be reaching out to one of those groups later today. So thank you so much for playing this week and checking out the curiosity. We have a brand new one. We'll have 1 week to give it a go. Let's take a look at it now.
This week's curiosity is this beautiful green stone. This one's been polished so you can see this amazing coloration and pattern. Can you identify what this is? It's a very famous type of stone. I'll give you a bit of a clue. It has something to do in common with these other objects I have here on my desk. This electrical wiring, these coins, and this piping. This is from a water pipe. What do you think these objects have to do with this beautiful blue stone? For your chance to win a £50 Amazon gift voucher prize, send in your best guesses to to classroom@darwin200.com. Join me in 1 week's time and I'll reveal the answer. Good luck and see you then.
All right, so there we go. That is our curiosity for this week. Stu had a polished version, and in my office here, I have an unpolished version of that same material. So that's kind of what it looks like before it goes through a rock tumbler and gets polished. This is what it kind of looks like before. You saw Stu had a polished version of this material. So classroom at darwin200.com. 2 weeks for the new experiment, trying out the solar system in your schoolyard, and 1 week for the curiosity of the week. All right, we're at that time where we say goodbye for the week. We're a few minutes over time, but that's nothing unusual. Thanks so much for hanging out today. As we sign off for today, we are going to have our time to thank our sponsors, our supporters, our partners, without whom we wouldn't be sailing around the world, bringing young conservation leaders on board, doing the world's most exciting classroom. So we owe them an awful lot, our incredible sponsors, partners, and collaborators. So goodbye for this week. We'll see you next week with another world's most exciting classroom event number 61. We will have a live uplink from the ship because we'll be sailing again. We'll be somewhere between New Zealand and Australia. But let's wrap up with a thank you to our supporters.